welcome all of you to eliminatingwaterpoverty.org. This is part of the OBBI, Overseas Volunteers for Better India, in partnership with Art of Living, a powerful partnership with Art of Living. And we've been involved for the last 4 to 5 years in deeply working towards enhancing the lives of people by providing the basic essentials of water. So today we are here to talk about this whole water, why water is important, what are some of the challenges that country like India is facing because of this water shortages, why is this even happening, and some of the work that we as OBBI are doing. So I have with me my colleagues, Mohan, Trikha, who is an entrepreneur and a businessman, and he is the chairman of the Overseas Volunteers for Better India in Silicon Valley Bay Area. And I have the president of OBBI, Mr. Satej Chaudhary, an extremely dedicated and highly passionate volunteer. And there are hundreds of others who are behind the scenes, both here as well as in India, who are committed to eliminating this water poverty. And I'm very proud and I'm honored actually to be associated with this organization for the last 4 or 5 years. And we're going to take you through a bunch of questions through a conversation. And I also would like to remind the audience that you have an opportunity to ask questions on whatever platform, your favorite social media platform that you're on, whether you're on YouTube or LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook. If you write your questions in the comments area, then it gets represented here, and then we can come back and ask the question at the end. So let me begin the conversation with a few questions to both Mohanji and Satej. Mohan, so let's start with you.
Yes,
We all know water is such an important aspect in this world for human beings. Can you give us the breakdown of water consumption between agriculture, industry, and human consumption, especially in India, since we are primarily targeting solving problems in India? And why is this so important to all of us? Take us through some of your own learning and observations.
very good question, BV. First of all, before I answer that question, I want to first thank you to be co-chairing this wonderful cause with all of us and giving us your guidance all the time.
Thank
It's a pleasure indeed to have you be part of this organization, and it's great to be part of this inaugural session. Yeah, we had a couple of small difficulties, but as you will see on every Sunday going forward, that we are getting better and better at it. So before I also answer the questions about the water usage in India, let me first wish everybody a happy Independence Day. It
That's
just
true.
happened um, after hundreds of years of subjugation. India finally, 74 years ago, got its independence. And yes, we have the independence, but poverty remains, and the 70% of the rural masses uh, are still deprived of decent living. So let's just look at the water issue in India. India has 4% of the world water and 16% of its population. So right from the start, we are, on the short end of the stick. However, even with this 4%, we have issues. Looking at the whole geography of India, there is huge water availability on the east, north, and extreme shortage on the west, or uh, extreme west, the Rajasthan area, as most of the people will probably know, Cherrapunji in Assam has 400 inches of rain, which is the largest amount across the world, or one of the top places. And you go to Jaisalmer or Pali or Jodhpur areas or Rajasthan, an inch of rain is is considered normal. Uh, so, but this water distribution is a huge issue.
mm,
India can be divided into a four quadrants. The the right north quadrant, plenty of water availability, yet there is shortage because the way the water is available, the fresh water is available. North gets the water from two sources, both from the monsoons as well as from the melting snow of the Himalayas, big storage. However, if you go into the middle to south part, it's only the rains. And even the rains, the climate change has caused a huge issue for us.
mm,
The earth is warmer and the air is carrying more vapor up. And now the new phenomena of cloudbursts have started.
mhm,
So there is same amount of rain India is getting. However, the rain falls in buckets in large quantity in a much shorter period. So we are in for extreme water events.
mm.
These extreme water events can be a drought and flooding. As right now, for example, India is going through a huge flooding in the northwest side. Jaipur just got the floods of almost 20, 30 years. So much rain hasn't happened, and this is Rajasthan, a desert area.
Even Mumbai, 2 weeks,
Mumbai, yeah, Mumbai also
in like
suffers for this huge water
one
floods
day,
in a
one
way.
day rainfall, something that they have never seen in
Exactly.
45 years.
Now, to make the matter worse with the nature, the water situation in India is huge mismanagement of water. Would you believe India is extracting more water out of the ground than China and United States combined?
Wow.
So as a result, the water table in India is falling pretty badly. In some places in northwest areas, even um, in Delhi areas or uh, Punjab, some portions also, the water table is down 800 feet.
Yeah, this is like when we were growing up in 60s, 70s, 80s. You just have to drill like 50 feet and you get water. And today,
Exactly, exactly.
800,000 feet.
And what is the mismanagement part is very sad. It's sad in the sense that, first of all, it's a mismanagement, then awareness
Hmm.
is sadly lacking. And as well, this water scarcity is there, but the contamination of water, as you go deeper into the ground, then you get heavy metals into the water. So people, 80% of India does not have drinking water. 80% of India's rural don't have running water in their homes.
Mm.
It's a huge. Can you imagine
Yeah,
the COVID situation when everybody's saying that wash your hands, wash your hands?
I know.
How can a poor in the remote areas where who cannot have? Now, I just mentioned to you, 85% of India's water is used up by agriculture.
Wow,
So
85%.
85%. And all the rainwater, which the fresh water that nature gives, most of it, almost 80% of it, flows back into the sea.
Mm.
So that's another mismanagement.
Mm.
Mismanagement, extraction, contamination.
mm,
If we could manage these few situations, make people aware, education would be critical.
mhm.
So with that, I I believe I've given you an overall situation.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll dig deeper into this a little bit more, and let me go to Satej, and let me ask Satej. Satej, you've been very actively involved with this OBBI for so many years, and we know how passionate you are, and you're really like committed to solving this problem. So, my question to you is, India experiences year after year water shortages despite heavy rains, as Mohanji was saying, right? Why? Why do we have this problem? I mean, take us through the state of water emergency, or how the water management is done, and what should be done in the future to overcome these things.
Thanks, Vijay. So, like you rightly said, that, just a few years back, we could just drill up to 30, 40 feet, get water. And now the same places we have to go 500, 600,000 feet, and we still do not get water. So, primarily India geography is such that most of central and southern India depends on rainwater
Hmm.
for sustenance. And what it means is, in an ideal situation, it rains. This rainwater goes into the underground aquifers, and it is this water in the underground tanks or underground natural aquifers that sustain life for the rest of the year. So this is the water that provides water for wells, perennial rivers, so on and so forth. And essentially, the water crisis can be put in one sense is that our underground tanks are running dry. And what's happening is essentially we're not replenishing the underground aquifers enough, and we're pulling out too much water. Right? And so, why is it that we're not replenishing? There are a few reasons for that. The first one is chemical farming. A soil that is organic, that is alive, really behaves like a sponge. So when it rains, it attracts, it kind of holds a lot of water, pushes it underground. But because of chemical farming, all life is, chemical farming has really killed all life in the soil. So the soil has become very hard, impervious, and so, the water does not reach out.
Hmm.
The second thing is climate change, like Mohanji had pointed out. Earlier, we would have rain that would kind of span over 4 months. There would be plenty of time for the water to seep underground. Now, 80% of the rain happens in just 2 weeks, and there's a flood, and the water runs away. And after that, it does not have enough time to percolate. So essentially, we're not replenishing our ground aquifers enough. The second problem is over extraction. So, proliferation of bore wells. Like Mohanji again said, India pulls out more water than US and China combined. And this also primarily because of some misaligned government incentives. We give free electricity. Farmers are encouraged to grow water-hungry cash crops, which we export out, which India doesn't even need. So we are in this situation where we do not have water, and whatever water we have, we extract it and utilize it for cash hungry crops, and we export it out.
Yeah,
So we're really exporting water in large quantities. So that's really, our water crisis.
yeah. No, very interesting. I mean, I come from a village, and back at the time when I was growing up in the village in 60s and 70s, a normal rainfall that you experience during the monsoons and all, right, will lead to the overflow of the lake. So there used to be all these canals, and there used to be the lake, and one overflows and then goes into another lake, and it was pretty obvious, right, in the villages back in those days. This is, I'm talking about South India, which is where the biggest challenge is. But despite that, we used to have two crops a year, two agricultural crops a year. And things have really changed significantly in the last several years. So my next question to Mohanji, and since Mohan, you have visited so many of these places as well. Now, agriculture being such a predominantly main occupation for greater than 60% of the population, and as you said, 85% of the water that we have in India is consumed by agriculture. So the scarcity that we are talking about, how does this affect this rural life or economy or education and all that thing that people who live in villages have to deal with today?
Well, the situation is very dire. The income level, let's just understand the GDP level first.
Hmm.
India's $2.8 trillion economy, which is one fifth of China and almost one tenth of United States.
Hmm.
The average GDP of a person or per capita GDP is approximately $2,000 a year. So if it is average 2,000, you can imagine that the poorer section of the community, of the so-called rural community, is certainly no more than half, almost half, because the rich live in the rich part of the country in the metropolitan cities of India. So farmers are very poor. An average size of farm per farmer is only 2 acres or 1 hectare. A village will have an approximately 1,500 people. There are 6,40,000 villages in India. For a population which is sustaining in the villages are almost 800 million. And half, almost half, 400 million, greater than the population of the United States, is deprived of water.
Mm.
The whole north, west, all the way down to Kerala or Karnataka,
Mhm.
the west, is deprived, and some in the middle. So economically, a farmer is living absolutely on the edge. I have had a chance to visit some of the places, as you mentioned with you,
Mhm.
uh, and dialing back in 2016 into Latur, into Maharashtra, and 17, 18, every year. Last year, I was in Pali, in Rajasthan, where people are desperate for under 2 inches of rain, and they can hardly get one crop
Mm.
a year. Just sustenance is there. So this has dire consequences.
Mm.
And the matter gets worse, as Satej pointed out to you. So there is a thing called what I call the water footprint. Just like carbon footprint,
Mhm.
there's a water footprint.
Mhm.
Do you know it is for to get 1 cup of coffee,
Mm.
the cost is 140 liters of water.
Mhm.
To get a kilogram of rice, it is 3,000 liters. And it's almost 4,000 liters to get a 1 kg of sugar.
Mm. Is that because of inefficiency or that's just the nature?
Well, it is the farming practices, it is the incentives, as Satej pointed out. A farmer gets a cash crop, he gets 2,000 rupees guaranteed if he takes a ton of sugar cane back into the sugarcane factory. So, you can imagine if he can get water, they
Mhm.
would immediately flood their 1 or 2 acres and get 80 tons of this, and he is happy. So this uses up the water where there is some access to that water, the groundwater. So we have to address what I call this water footprint problem. And would you believe, to get a 1 kg of meat, either beef or anything else, it's almost 15,000 liters of water.
Oh my goodness.
So being a vegetarian is a must
Yeah. Yeah.
for. So it's combination of these things which needs to be addressed. Yes, we have to get more water into the ground, but unless we solve the whole ecosystem and the water footprint,
Yeah.
you know, and also create the water sense.
Yeah,
we will not make the economic difference. Now,
absolutely.
Modi ji, our Prime Minister, has put Jal Jeevan as one of the absolute frontier to go after to provide sufficient water. But yes, sufficient water is one side, but also conservation is equally important.
Interesting. I don't know if you saw the report that came last week that even in the United States, the meat consumption between July 2019 to July 2020 has actually gone down, and plant-based meat has gone up by almost 15 to 20%, which is a very, very interesting observation. So you can see the shift that is happening even in an advanced country like United States. And I think the point that you are making, right, is India, by nature, a significant portion of the people have been vegetarians, and unfortunately, I guess a lot of them are getting converted now. But I think there is a message here that one from a water consumption perspective, and the other one from respecting the nature, right, for various reasons, people should consider moving back into vegetarianism.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. So let's go to the next question, which is about OBBI. And since Satej has been involved for the longest amongst all of us, and Satej is the one who brought both of us, Mohanji and myself, right, into this several years ago. So it's been really a pleasure for us. So Satej, take us through this whole OBBI journey, why this was started, and where are we at this point of time?
Yeah, Birji. So, so when we started OVBI, obviously we were looking at, okay, rural India has so many problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many things that we could go after. And what is we could kind of took a step back, took a strategic view, and we asked ourselves, okay, if there was one thing that we could do to swing the needle on India's rural economy, what would it be? And the answer that came back was overwhelmingly just water, because it has the ability to impact livelihoods, women empowerment, education, just you can just change the whole economy of a village. So once we decided that water is something that we want to focus on, the next question was, how do we do it?
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, we had a very interesting way in which we approach it. So we had both a top-down approach and a bottoms-up approach. So, like you were aware that the Tapatul from our team, he actually went to his village, implemented things with his own hands, and we learned a lot through that experience. So that was the bottoms-up approach. We also took the top-down approach where we partnered with some of our most organized, NGOs in India, Art of Living being one of the primary ones, to see how they are working with top geoscientists and working at scale, across hundreds of villages. So that experience also we've learned a lot. And I think after these 3-4 years, we see that as NRIs sitting halfway around the globe, there are really 3-4 things that we could do that can really help accelerate this change. So obviously, one is funds. Without funds, nothing moves. That is primary. But the second thing that we also realize is that technology. Most of the NGOs that are working in this space do not use technology to the potential, that they could.
Mm-hmm.
And just in the last couple of years, we've seen how technology could be brought in to increase efficiencies in action plan creation, monitoring, impact assessment, and stuff like that. So technology is something we're very excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And later part of the series, we're gonna have Shubho Biswas, who's the CEO of Green Good Labs. We have a special episode with him where he'll walk through how technology can be used to speed up our processes. And I think the third piece is really partnerships. The challenges that we're talking about are humongous. It's not really possible for any one organization to do it. So it's very critical for multiple organizations to come together and work in a synergistic manner to take it forward. And so on that front, we are also working on this mode of execution that we call as thin layer execution, where we bring partners with unique strengths, and each one of them are working on their own track, and collectively they can make a big impact. Just to give you an example, in Karnataka, for example, the government is supporting us through the Narega scheme. So that is taking care of paying for the daily wage workers who work on our projects. Now we have ISRO scientists who are providing the action plan expertise on it. We have Green Good Labs from the US who are going to provide further efficiencies in executing this project. So both on all the fronts, planning, monitoring, and after that, impact assessment. Then we have IIT, the Global IIT Alumni Network, who have been very interested in working with us. So they are working on a very particular track called river body rejuvenation, desilting of water bodies. So we're partnering with them to drive that particular track. Then we also have a lot of interest from Rotary International. So some of the Rotary clubs in India are very keen to take up eco restoration cells in our areas of intervention. That way, the work that we do has a long-term sustenance, not just one time that we work and then we move off. So, given all of these things, I think this is where we are at this point.
Very
We've
nice.
come to a point where, there are a lot more. I mean, we can really work at scale, and we'll talk about this in our upcoming
Yeah,
series.
very, very nice. So,
If I may add to
yeah,
what
please go ahead.
you just said, we have had a phenomenal growth in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
We began with one or two villages in Maharashtra and Latur district, where all our resources went in just doing the first test case, and it was a phenomenal success. A village called Halgra, with as the Patil from there did this. We have now working with others have created efficiency that we are now down to $1,500 to provide sufficient water for one village of 500 farmers and 1,500 people.
As
That's
compared
a
to,
phenomenon.
what did we spend in Halgra?
We spent 60,000 US dollars, 70,000 US
Wow.
dollars
Because of this leverage.
because we are now able to leverage and participate with bigger audience, and more people are joining us
Mm,
leverage, and now that people are able to see it, there is a lot of self-help,
mm,
and we want to go extending it so that people, once they see how it is done, people are willing to do it themselves, get together and move things pretty rapidly. So we're very encouraged.
wow, that's pretty fascinating. So all these partnership from the description that you gave, that so basically they bring the knowledge, they bring the expertise, they bring to some extent money, they bring volunteers, right? So these are some of the things that all these partners they bring to the table.
The most important part of that is the local culture and communication.
Mm-hmm.
See, a farmer who's living on bare thread cannot risk change. If you ask them to change something and he defaults, something goes wrong,
Yeah,
he's nowhere.
yeah.
So we have to create a communication and trust level between us coming in and the local bodies, as well as their buy-in. So that communication, that trust level, taking them, ensuring them, answering their questions, building these things is very important for them to create a buy-in,
Mm-hmm.
because there is an atmosphere of mistrust
Mm,
of the past.
mm,
So that's an important aspect.
mm. So let's jump into the actual intervention. So this last 4 or 5 years of OBBI intervention in this Halgara village and the Latur district, right? We then extended beyond Halgara into many, many villages in the Latur district, and now we have extended that into Karnataka, into Rajasthan, and all of those things. So both of you, why don't you take a few minutes and share the actual intervention that OBBI has done?
So let me start with it. The fundamental piece, as both of us have stated, is the ability to create water capacity.
Mhm.
So the ability that water doesn't flow away when the rains come, and it is saved in some way. So any water bodies which exists in the villages, we will desert, create its capacity, increase its capacity, and ensure the water permeates into the ground. The second biggest intervention is similarly flow. Stop the flow of water, slow it down as it flows down. So we will create either check dams, and within the check dam, recharge wells, water structures. We call them simple structures. And depending upon the, uh, the soil condition, the hydrology, and those kinds of things that we plan it, that there are additional. So creating water capacity is one. The second thing important is forestation. Having trees, the ability to have greenery around when there's water is very critical. Nature has that balance. The trees have the ability when it rains to take the water into the ground.
Hmm.
And when they need the water to be able to, and the trees also create an environment by which the rain, increased rain and slow rain happens. So bringing those forestations back and greenery back is also a very critical part of the equation.
So the man who destroyed a lot of this nature, how things were, if you don't maintain that ecosystem, that is when you will start seeing all these problems. So it's kind of important to,
Yes, absolutely. Nature is self-correcting, and
yeah,
all we are trying to do is help it out,
yeah,
help accelerate that process
yeah.
and reduce. Would you believe India has less than 28 trees per person? The
Wow.
same country had 200 trees at the time of partition 75 years ago. Now, people will say the population increased. Yes, but so have we destroyed systematically any ground covers of trees, and deforestation has been critical. United States has 400 trees per person.
Wow.
Canada has 4,500 trees per person. It
Wow.
is a challenge. We have given farmers free trees to put it around their own farms. So this is the cheapest investment. $2, 150 rupees buy you three trees. The combination of three tree, a fruit tree, a neem tree, which protects the other trees and protects your ground, putting that nature back into the. So Satej can add more intervention.
Yeah, Satej, so I thought I'll extend that question, that the methodologies that Mohanji articulated of what the OBBI intervention, is it the same methodologies that we can pretty much apply in every other areas where we are intervening, or does the methodology differ from place to place based on geography, weather, and so many other parameters?
That's right, Manji. So, this whole science of solving the water crisis is kind of a known science. It is called integrated watershed management, academic terms. And based on the geography, geology, soil types, amount of rain that the region receives, the interventions change. In fact, our geoscientists from ISRO, who are spearheading this whole initiative, have told us that India can be broken down into 9 agroclimatic zones, and the intervention in each one of them are a little bit different. So what works in one place may not work in the other. So, so what we have done is, but broadly speaking, what we can do is the short-term interventions, which Mohanji pointed out, are these artificial recharge structures that we construct so that the water that flows goes underground. And second is the more long-term things where we put vegetation and organic farming so that we create this sponge layer. And based on the so for example, in Rajasthan, right, it's obvious that what works in Rajasthan will not work in Karnataka, will not work in in Assam. So Right now, we are working in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, and Rajasthan. And our hope is to really create pilots in all these 9 regions. And once the pilots happen, then we find that the local population gets very excited about it and they're able to find very creative ways to scale. So, yeah, so that is what is on our roadmap coming up soon.
I may also add that we are deep into education and building portals. We have just launched a portal in Jharkhand. We call it the Jal Sakhi
Mm.
portal, where hundreds and thousands of women who work have cell phones in their hands. They can very simply nurture a small nurseries where they can produce samplings for trees and sell them for 100 rupees, 4 or 5 samplings. Very simple. One, it gives them cash. Two, we get a broad adoption of trees all around. So education is fundamental to, as many people as we can reach out.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
those
absolutely.
those training portals are very important to us.
Yeah. So let's get to the funding aspect of it. To do any of these projects, obviously, raising money, raising funds is very, very essential and very integrated aspect of this whole NGO. So let's talk about the fundraising that we do both here and in India and other places. How is that money put to use, and how do the donors actually get the assurance that this money is really being put to use in the most efficient manner? Meaning, how do I get the maximum ROI for a dollar that I am donating towards this cause?
That's a very, very important question. Transparency, trust is fundamental for us. First of all, OBBI Water or OBBI itself is a 501c charitable organization in the United States. The money we collect is tax deductible. Secondly, it is recognized by a lot of corporations where matching funds can be given. So if you contribute $100 towards it, your corporation can give you another $100 to make it $200, and which goes a long way in India. Now, the second part of your question is how do you ensure it is being put to the right use? Very important part that that this is done right and it is totally transparent. We channel this money through what is trusted distribution network. Our partners have to give us a certificate of full utilization. We ourselves observe and only do what is called milestone based payments. In other words, we have an understanding up front. We calculate the intervention amounts. We will not fund a particular project 100%, has to be leveraged. We will go no more than 30% of that funding and ensure that everything is a milestone. And sometimes the milestone are not met. For example, we've had this COVID situation right now where certain projects had to be put on hold, so funds will not be distributed.
Mhm.
We do not fund something which is already been started by somebody and the funds have been used. No, the funds is used. So the transparency, accountability, upfront costing is very critical. And we only fund direct funding. There
Mm.
is no overhead funding.
Mm.
So I can assure you that no amount of money will go waste into any direction.
And also you have OBBI now, instead of taking on the entire burden by ourselves, now you're leveraging a big chunk of the money that the state governments have reserved right, through this Manrega
Manrega program.
projects that
Exactly. So
That's
just to give you some examples here, and Satej can add to it. For example, in Rajasthan, in the Pali district, we work with Amla Ruya Foundation, where we only fund one third, a dam for 100-acre feet of water, which is approximately 100 million gallons of water,
Mhm.
uh, will cost around $10,000, and we will only fund one third of it. The
Mm.
other thirds are collected from local sources. One third the villages themselves give, plus they give the land, plus we find local organizations, uh, and as I pointed out, there is the social responsibility funding
Yeah,
uh, by by the 2% of the profits by the corporations in India
yeah.
is got to be put back into. So we utilize that too.
CSR
Yeah,
funding.
CSR funding,
Good, good, good.
corporate social responsibility funding.
Yeah. So let me ask Satej one more question, which is Satej, you have visited so many of these places. You have visited before the intervention, you have visited after the intervention. Take us through your live experience of the reaction of these people who live there, who have got the benefit from the OBBI water intervention. What is the feeling? What is the response of these people?
yeah. So honestly, it is this visits to India and the interaction that we've had with these people that give us so much hope and excitement that keeps us going. And I visited places in Latur, Maharashtra, Jalna, Maharashtra, visited Karnataka projects. And there are three things that really stand out after my interactions over there. The first thing is really commitment. Typically we think that farmers, they are poor, they are suffering and stuff like that. But when we went there and met our team, absolutely blown away by the kind of commitment, the enthusiasm that was shown by our teams, the ability to just go through things despite this number of challenges the challenges that they were facing. That was just phenomenal. That just really gave us a lot of hope that this is not something that's going to waste. We really, this is something we're really building leaders who are going to take things to a whole new level. So that was one. The second thing that got me really excited was the skill. So when we work in these massive projects, what happens is there's a lot of uh, tricky human interaction challenges that crop up. So when you work in a new village, the local people may not like it. They might feel threatened. What are power dynamics and create more sort of troubles. The ability of these teams to navigate through such intricate situations was very, very mind blowing.
Mm.
And then obviously, seeing and then the impact when you see. I know I met a woman, a lady, a single woman who received an award from the chief minister as being one of the most progressive farmers. She's just a lady with 2 acres of farm.
Mm.
And so many such, I mean, in Jalna, they've created more than 125 entrepreneurs after these interventions. Karnataka, now they've partnered with the Digital India initiative, and and also for the government's last mile delivery of initiatives, these people who worked on our water projects are now taking ownership of, uh, ensuring that the government schemes actually reach the last mile. So, given all of these things, I'm very, very excited. And what personally excites me is the leadership that we're creating on the ground. We're obviously working at this point, but there's a lot more that is going to come through the years. And I'm sure Mohanji, and I know you've also experienced it yourself.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's why I was
And,
going to ask Mohanji, because Mohanji is awesome in numbers. So I know you did a back of the napkin calculation when you and I visited the Latur district at one point of time about how from single crop to dual crops and sometimes even three crops, how it has actually impacted the economics for a lot of those villages. If you recall that, it'll be really wonderful to share with the audience.
Oh, okay. So, if you remember, and we all are part of the Silicon Valley, and startups are always in front of us and say, hey, this one went 1,000 times, this is 500 times.
Yeah.
If you went to Halgra and you see the productivity increase of this village, it is phenomenal. It is 1,000x. In 3 years, the farmers, some of the homes we went into, they didn't have space to store the grain.
Wow.
They were sleeping on top. The sugarcane cakes, they made out of the sugarcane jackery, as they call it,
Jaggery. Jaggery. Hmm.
jaggery.
Hmm.
There were 3 tiers of jaggery stacked on the floor, and the charpais are on top.
Yeah.
If you go, the amount of food, if you go in the village itself, how people are dressed, would you believe they had a hospital?
Yeah.
Now,
Very nice.
they are treating, this is a 2,000 to 3,000 people village. They
Uh,
got a hospital, roads, water is everywhere in terms of healthcare. Kids have new dresses going to the school.
nice.
So you could see how, and other people from surrounding villages have come. In fact, people have come back from the cities back to the village
Hmm.
to be able to do things like they're putting in, you know, um, water conservation, drip irrigation systems now. You know, I mean, you and me saw a sugar cane, which used to be only 6 feet tall, was 25 feet tall and with 2 inches diameter,
Wow.
just because of the water availability.
Excellent. Excellent.
So, the economic impact is absolutely huge and transformational in confidence of people, their health. You could see it. And the green cover, of course, through some of the technology measures that we have with drones flying, we could do very easily the green cover calculations very quickly and the yield covers very quickly, how much grain is being produced per acre.
Yeah.
Can you believe that 1 acre yield of sugarcane went up from 20 tons to 80 tons to
Wow.
100 tons?
Hmm.
5x, 4x. So you
Fascinating.
could see a phenomenon because the, 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 the ground is very productive.
Yeah. Yeah.
The soil is very productive, it's managed right.
So, definitely participating and being involved in this OBBI and this whole projects that we have involved, it's absolutely infectious. I'm pretty sure not just me, many of the other volunteers who are associated with this are very, very excited. I mean, you can see that with the number of people who come for our Wednesday, Thursday meetings. And, everybody has a full-time job. They contribute money, they contribute enormous amount of their time. And it's the greatest advantage that we all see is the fact that you get to actually visit places that you would have never ever imagined even going to, these kind of remote places in India. So I welcome the audience and everyone to take some kind of a part in this organization. This is very exciting. This is something where even technologically you can understand, and water being such fundamental, we ourselves got tremendously educated about how this whole ecosystem actually works. And I welcome everyone who's listening here, and then spread the message to come and be volunteers, to be part of this organization, as well as contribute in whatever way you can. So, both of you, if you have any other message to the audience, please share your thoughts for 1 minute.
Very well said, BVG. So eliminatewaterpoverty.org. Go to that website, learn, come and join us, help us adopt a village, adopt a farmer, get back to your village. You will have a transformational change to their life. And thank you. And thank you for all the contributions.
Yeah. Satej?
Yes, like Mohanji and BVG said, please visit us at our website. Come meet one of us. I know many of the people in the audience know us. We would love to work with you very closely. And this is, we really invite you to see how we can solve India's biggest challenge. I think this is one of the most exciting things that I've personally embarked on, and I'm sure all of you will love it. So please come join us, and I'm sure our teams are only going to grow bigger as this series grows. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Water poverty is the biggest challenge of our lifetime. Currently, 54% of India faces extremely high water stress.
Women have to walk miles to procure water. Farmers live in deep financial distress, and major cities such as Chennai are running out of water.
21 cities, in fact, will face the same zero water crisis by next year.
Over the last 3 years, Overseas Volunteers for a Better India, OBBI, has been working on a war footing to avert this national crisis, working on projects across 4 states: Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, and Rajasthan.
3 years ago, our first village cost us $70,000. Today, after 100 villages, we are down to $1,500 a village. This is because of our partnerships with governments, corporates, and other NGOs.
OVBI water projects have created 1.6 billion gallons of extra water capacity and helped over 160,000 rural villagers.
Building on this strong foundation, OVBI is on an urgent race to eliminate water poverty in 500 villages by 2020 and scale to 5,000 villages by 2023.
Our vision is to completely transform India from a state of water poverty to water plenty by 2030.
With the gift of just $1,500, you can change the lives of 2,000 people for the foreseeable future.
Please adopt one or more villages so we can solve this critical challenge together.